a lot of shaking up is happening, and I'm raising a lot of red flags, trying to make as much noise as possible, not to essentially attract attention to myself, but to attract attention towards the greater problem that I'm seeing consistently.
All right, welcome back to Hire the Podcast. With you, as always, I'm Travis Miller. And today, my friends, I am excited to introduce our guest. This man's a dynamic force in industrial marketing and true embodiment of curiosity-driven success. Guy's got over 14 years of experience. He's been instrumental in transforming B2B campaigns through creative strategies, data-driven insights. He's the founder of Speak Friend, which is an empathy-driven marketing firm, and leads that team. They've executed over 500 campaigns. And this man, while doing that, is fostering a culture of kindness and data-backed decision-making. Beyond that, his professional achievements, man's a former MMA fighter, frequent podcast guest, and a devoted family man. Welcome to the show, my friend, Eddie Saunders Jr. Eddie, how you doing?
It is well with my soul. It's a great day to have a great day and an even greater conversation with my guy, T-Rav, man. What's up?
Yeah, great to see you. Great to see you. So, Eddie, you there's something that you said that stuck with me. Describe yourself as living proof that curiosity might be a superpower. I want you to tell me exactly what you mean by that, and if you can recollect a moment where that really came to fruition.
Yeah, like that's a really good question. I really appreciate it because I think it informs a lot of who I am as a person. And I kind of like to leave no stone that I need to unturned. Like I'm just learning and exposing and subjecting myself to so many things. I've done that since I was a child. I was always the very busy kid doing all the sports, all the things. And even me being well in my 30s now, you think I would slow down, but man, I still have the energy and I'm still just doing all of these things. And though I'm not great at everything, I'll never hit a hole in one. I'll never probably dunk a basketball anytime soon. You know, I'm not going to knit you a sweater, at least anytime soon, but maybe in the future. But all that said, I've learned and developed so many deep-rooted passions for a small list of things, but I would have never been able to discover those pieces of myself and form into the person that I am today if I didn't subject myself to so many things. So in life, I take a shotgun approach. Now, when it comes to my passion, that's when I narrow it down to that rifle, very focused. But I will never be able to find those things until I really spread out my perspective. And so it's really been massive, and I couldn't be more thankful for trying a little bit of everything. And realizing that not everything's my cup of tea, but not everybody even likes tea.
But you wouldn't know that until you tried it.
Precisely, right?
So what are some things you're trying now? So are you still out there dabbling in new interests and ideas to see what else might make it to that list of finite passions?
It's really interesting you say that, because being a dad is a large part of the reason I feel like God put me on this planet and what I'm supposed to do and what I'm supposed to be. And I used to make this joke when my first daughter was born when I was 20 years old, still learning how to do things myself. And I thought, man, I hope that she grows up and she loves so many things that I know nothing about, so that I can learn new things and find new passions and support her in what she loves, because it's outside of what I'm able to show her, because it challenges me as a father to keep my mind open to things. And that specific child, now I have 4 of them, but my oldest daughter specifically, she does cheer. Never did cheer. Obviously, never. I've never done dance. She does dance. I never did 4-H and showed hogs and cattle. Never did that whatsoever. And she does all of these things, and it's almost like a very weird message being brought back to me, and it really kind of brings it full circle. So I'm subjecting myself to the things in life that I see my kids enjoy and investing into them, and it brings a whole new sense of joy to me. And if I know it and I can carry on these things that I already have learned and shared and grown with, then it's even sweeter. But those new things and watching my kids fall in love with things and then learning through that, it's so fulfilling, dude. That's the good stuff.
I've always enjoyed sports, but growing up as a elder millennial, you stuck to the big ones: baseball, football, basketball. Living in Chicago, the Hawks had a good run there. But I came downstairs a couple months ago, and my 6-year-old son, I don't know how on earth he found it, but we ended up watching cricket matches for like the next hour and a half. And terribly entertaining, but it's amazing to watch the curiosity of young children who are willing to try anything. And then you got most old farts like us. I mean, we're so set in our ways that it's almost impossible to try new things unless I think being a parent is a huge part of it because you're forced to experience those new things. Have any of your experiences with your children, these new avenues that you're going down, has that translated into work, into your professional life at all?
I mean, my kids keep me humble. My kids keep me in the mindset of always being as open-minded as possible to these new things. And my oldest daughter is definitely a cornerstone in that. And then when I'm working just in within industrial marketing, a lot of shaking up is happening, and I'm raising a lot of red flags, trying to make as much noise as possible, not to essentially attract attention to myself, but to attract attention towards the greater problem that I'm seeing consistently because I'm so passionate about solving it. And so my kids continue just to remind me by allowing me to challenge myself by coaching them as they grow. I keep telling myself, man, my kids are going to outgrow me and they're going to graduate from daddy being able to be a coach. And I always have this imposter syndrome of not being essentially qualified because I didn't play collegiately, in any specific level. But it's been wonderful for them to not only want to latch on because they love that interaction that I have with them, but I get to grow in my understanding of each of these aspects. But most importantly, deepen relationships with these children and knowing what they're all subjected to in this world nowadays. I will always take more time to mold those little minds as much as I can. Hence why I do so much within the community, not only with my own children, but just all the children that my children, like my kids, are associated with, and just with the community in general. And then going back to how does that tie into the business? It brings a lot of opportunities for me to constantly be auditing and looking at the things that I don't understand, to sharpen my sword and not try to essentially be a jack of all trades. I want to be able to level up in all these areas because there are people that are trusting myself and my team with big decisions, and we need to be able to treat those at the same level we would treat at molding our children to be good human beings. So it's a mission to me.
I want to talk about the journey that led you to where you are now to start this company, but first I have one big question. So I'm a giant nerd and I know where Speak Friend comes from. I'm curious what it was that made you choose that as the name for your company. And for people that aren't as big a dorks as you and I, why did you choose that?
So, but with Speak Friend, it's definitely something near and dear to my heart. Since I was a child, and when they first came out, I was at prime age where just the sci-fi fantasy was just my jam. And my grandfather, who I have a great relationship to this day, he's one of my mentors. I'm just a big influence in my life. He introduced me to the movie, and every time a new one would come out, him and I would go watch it. And so from that, of course, became a big fan of the series in general. But to not digress too much to that, because we know we can, as it relates to choosing Speak Friend, was it just a nod to that specifically? Oh, for sure, because I now have the choice. But it's heavily rooted, and here's kind of the Easter egg within it, is empathy has been a big thing for me. And it doesn't make me better than anybody else, but it's something that I've chosen to really use as a cornerstone in my life because it's provided me a lot of perspective, understanding, and really cool objective and subjective benefits. And so knowing that, being able to speak friend in my way, as we know, they weren't able to get into that specific, the doors of Durin, for lack of a better term, until they spoke in the language in which you needed to open the door. And so many industrial marketers are doing the same things that they've always done, speaking their language, their talk, but they refuse to speak in the language in which those individuals who really they want to hear it can understand it, can embrace it, and actually respond to it. So until we actually provide empathy, the door remains closed. And so it's a little Easter egg within it. And I got to kind of scratch two itches at once, but it's very, very intentional and not just like, oh, I'm just going to think of something.
I just love Lord of the Rings.
Definitely rooted. I mean, I even got new threads today. Just, you know about it, man. It's just the way you go deep, but a little bit for me on the personal level, but it very much is rooted in that empathy play because I want to be able to continue to practice what I preach and keep it consistent because I know people out here are keeping receipts. And
you've had almost as long of a journey as Frodo did that led you here. I mean, your career taking you through manufacturing, marketing, content creation. And now here, what was the impetus for you going out and hanging your own shingle and saying, this is an area that companies in manufacturing need help in, and I am the one to provide it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I appreciate you asking. And I've been super blessed within my early 20s to be surrounded by entrepreneurs, like surrounded by salt of the earth people, hundreds of them, because I'd worked with them on a variety of different experiences, whether I was selling or consulting different marketing and advertising products, platforms, and services. So I became a dual threat in a way where I was able to exercise and really grow in building relationships, but primarily falling in love continuously with marketing, because I've just been in love with advertising since I was a kid. And so, got my marketing degree and all that fun stuff. But what I noticed is I worked in a 2-person company all the way up to, a multi, 10,000 plus corporate conglomerate with, hubs all over the world. So I had gone from junior high ball all the way up to the major leagues and had done it. I had the $1 million marketing budget that you think is a unicorn, but I had that card. I had that act. So when you have all of that perspective, you get a really wonderful just life blessing. And that's perspective and understanding as to what works really well, but also what gets broken along the way, because I've just seen so many things. I haven't seen everything, but I've been blessed with an accelerated perspective that I've just seen all these trends and patterns. And after so long seeing it at the very entry level and all the way at what some would call the highest level in some certain ways, it's just, I saw so many broken systems and processes, and manufacturing was such a hub for the way that we've always done it. And so I came from over a decade of being able to sell and consult and lead individuals in all of the latest and greatest, taking all the courses, getting all the certifications, just keeping my sword sharp on it. And I said, I've honestly seen enough, and I just see so much gap here. And I'm not trying to buy a Lamborghini or a lake house. Like, I understand how to professionally make this feasible for the manufacturing industry and then provide return, leveraging data and doing all the things that I know we're trying to do, but a lot of individuals don't do. Like, I currently work with sub 1 million ARR companies and then 150 million plus ARR companies. And I kid you not, they're both making the same mistakes. And so I take pride, and I think it's my mission, as well as being a husband and a father, but also being a steward and leader of just general, good, relevant, producing marketing tactics and strategies, man. I'm stupid nerdy about it.
What are the commonalities between the $1 million company and the $150 million company? You say they're both making the same mistakes. What are the commonalities that you see so many organizations screwing up, for lack of a better term?
One of the biggest ones is, if you think about 100% like of a pie, if you will, there's about 5% of the natural market that is ready to buy right now and talk to you right now. But with information being a commodity in the 21st century, as it is in industrial, is just no exception to that rule. There's upwards of 95% of the individuals that are just looking around, just seeking information. And so many individuals are just diving headfirst into the shallow pool that is people who are ready to buy right now. And they don't even have proper attribution to set up to show them what's actually converting, what their pipeline velocity. So not only did lack of data, don't even get me started there, but it's simply just focusing on the tip of the iceberg, but not speaking to and learning how we can better communicate with the individuals who are just looking, so that when they're ready to make a decision, you are as relevant as possible. And there are a lot more lower hanging fruit options for people to be able to accomplish that, whether you are sub 1 mil or 150 plus mil a year company. It's just at scale at that point.
I know that's a big philosophy for you and the company, believing that 95% of the people who are out there aren't ready to buy yet. What can companies do to engage with those organizations on a consistent basis, so that when they do convert to that 5% that needs the value or the product that an organization provides, that organization is top of mind and they're either reaching out to you or significantly more receptive to a conversation?
Sure. I mean, we have a real powerful opportunity and responsibility as brands in the industrial space, because we know the conversation is happening, the narrative is happening, but very few are taking control of the narrative at scale. And so I'm not just going to reduce it down to make more social media content, but it needs to be super, super relevant, super targeted. And if we're not even getting into paid ads and we're just talking about just a general strategy, we have to not think of where we interpret the message to be and talking the way we would typically speak. The lack of empathy within industrial marketing is actually a huge anchor on our ankles, and it slows down a lot of progress. And so you see a lot of ad spend being just thrown out when it doesn't need to. And so when I get to go into these clients and I get to look into what they're doing, one of the first things that we do is reduce spend on near everything, because we actually look side by side, see these inefficiencies, see these inconsistencies, and then see all of these just sunken pits, if you will, for lack of a better term. So I hope that answered the question by all means, but it's just, I see so much. And so then industrial is just such a pit because they're years behind what a lot of other industries are. So it's just getting them back up to speed. It takes a little bit of a rally.
What would be a first step for a new organization? They're just hearing this conversation. They say, I never thought of that before. What would be the first step that they should take in reaching out to or even becoming aware of who that 95% is?
The best way to duplicate a specific action is to look back at what has caused that desired action in the past. So being a decade-long salesperson, and I've read over 40 to 50 plus sales books, Jeb Blunt's, the Gittimers, the Cardones, the Zig Ziglars, read them all, right? Because that's what it was. So all that said is going back to figure out why humans are making decisions. Because if we're talking about conversion, we're talking about two separate decisions. Marketing gets them to make a decision and sales gets them to make a decision, right? Marketing gets them to raise their hand, and then sales facilitates the rest of the transaction, gets them to sign, if you will. Some would say marketing gets them to stand, sales gets them to sign. But knowing this, and also that recognizing that with sales specifically, it's a science, and it comes down to an art form where you're getting someone, one decision is getting someone to obviously getting someone to make a decision. The next is getting the right person to. And so if we're pushing in that funnel specifically, you have to talk to the people who have said yes. So sorry if that was a roundabout way, but you have to talk to people that have said yes. I have specifically with clients went back and talked with some of their best customers and learned what got their attention, what brought their attention, what converted their attention. And obviously through a various amount of questions. And usually if you get the right individuals, you're going to find mind-boggling things. And I've even taken some of the best customer interviews and we turned it straight into ad copy. And that same ad copy is now converting into new leads because we started with what made this person say yes, what was their original problem, and how can we create messaging around that to make individuals aware that, hey, we do this.
Do you find that past customers are more receptive to talking to you and giving you this insightful and honest feedback versus if I were to call up our past customers and ask them similar questions? Do you think they would give you different answers than they would give to me?
So I've noticed it is a semi case by case, if you will, and it's just being very honest. It is based off the relationship. Now, in the events where I'm able to actually speak with these individuals, I have noticed that based off the questions that I ask, maybe it's even as a third party, but I do get semi more candid answers and responses if there were specific inefficiencies, if there were specific bottlenecks that they had to navigate because of said product or service. So sometimes you get really good feedback to then bring back to original individual and saying, hey, here's what I heard. So that's just a general human phenomenon of them actually, being able to say a little bit more because, the individual who we're speaking about isn't in the room, if you will. So think of what you will about that. I mean, that's definitely a psychological, very humanistic response. But all that said, being able to have somebody that will actually share that with you and being able to cultivate that information can serve your marketing and ad funnel for months.
Mm-hmm. You've talked about empathy a whole lot here, and you were listing that list of authors that you've read in it. I had a twinge of nostalgia. You mentioned Zig Ziglar, and I actually met him once. And you want to talk about empathy? So I grew up. My father, one of the consummate sales professionals in the world, always had Zig Ziglar tapes and Bob Moed tapes in the car. And Zig Ziglar was doing a book signing out in Oak Brook at the time. And I'm like 8 years old. And I'm already quoting Zig Ziglar. And he took me out there. And you'd imagine Zig Ziglar at a book signing back in late 80s. There was a line. I mean, and I come waddling up to the front with my dad. And Zig gets down on one knee And he talked to me for, maybe I'm misremembering, but I don't think so, at least 10 to 15 minutes. And you see the line growing frustrated, and he did not. That is an empathetic man, but he did not have empathy for those people waiting to talk to him when he was there talking to me. And what a tremendous man. And then 3 weeks later, I got a signed letter from Zig to me, signed by him, talking about the interaction, the meeting, and just the love that he showed for someone who cared about him was just incredible. And I wonder how much in our current generation are we able to do something like that? How do we show empathy to the people who care for us and are counting on us to care for them on our teams?
Sometimes when I was in my early sales career, I had to be reminded that I have 2 ears and 1 mouth. And there's a reason why God created that way. And I learned that I learn more when I use these more than I use this. Because this will get me in trouble. And it has. These keep me out of trouble. So I stopped grabbing my ears and pointing to my mouth. The idea is, and you've heard me talk here before, just it's genuinely wanting to as well, which is always the first step, like wanting, and it comes back to curiosity. You see how this is all disconnected. It's genuinely wanting to learn about what another person feels, what another person thinks. I don't have to agree with everybody here. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm not trying to be everyone's friend per se, but I will seek and make effort to understand you. And what I've learned in my short, 30 plus years of life is that if I'm able to express that to you and genuinely mean that, more often than not all the time, because humans be human, but more often than not, it'll be returned to me. To what extent is irrelevant, but it is returned to me, and it has only caused, in those circumstances, better and deeper interactions. And not that you seek these interactions with benefit, but the amount of consistent times that in some way, shape, or form it leads to something great and or better in my life. Call me selfish, but I pay attention to trends and patterns, and that's one that has served me and others really, really well. And until it's broken, I'm not going to fix it.
You're in an interesting spot to offer a unique perspective as a business owner who's building a team, but also being intimately aware of dozens, if not hundreds of companies over the years. You will probably see quite a bit what is working well and what is not working well with organizations. What are some consistencies that you've taken to your practice of what to do or what not to do when it comes to bringing people into an organization and consciously developing a culture?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love breaking the mold that like culture is not beer in the fridge and bean bags in the lobby. It's how you treat people. And I'm not an HR expert whatsoever, so don't let me do that. But like having worked in all these variety of capacities, gone up the career doing this, having awesome leaders and then horrible leaders, and then being a leader myself in a variety of other situations. Me just genuinely and it goes back to empathy, just me wanting to learn about these people and putting them in my situation, myself in their situation. It has caused me to have a higher level of understanding of how human beings want to be treated. And maybe it's a millennial thing, if you will, but I think that we're shifting the workplace a lot. And I remember early in my career being very much micromanaged and mistreated in a variety of ways. And not that I was like abused and I was like this and that and whatever, like it wasn't that whatsoever. But just looking back, I realized those were the situations that I never want to put anybody anybody else in because it was just wrong and unfair, whatever it may be. And so maybe having that accelerated experience in being subjected to lots of really bad and also really good situations, it's given me that perspective that allows me to not have to worry about what my team, because I got people that are working with me from around the world, and I'm not tracking anyone's time. We're not doing anything. We know very clearly that here's what needs to be done. And if you put them in the position, you give them the tools, and you constantly ask, what do you need in order to do this? And if nothing is in their way and they're doing what it is that you're requesting, and they're doing it within the timeline in which you both agree upon, then all you have to do is just making sure that you're just still being a genuinely open human being and staying out of their way. Because what's held me back so many times over the last 16 plus years is individuals standing in the way to make sure that I moved and progressed at their specific speeds. And I think us as millennials, we've learned after, going through this and seeing this shift and COVID changing so much about what we do and how we do it, we've been able to open our minds because we've seen so many cultural shifts just from being born in the late 80s, early 90s, whatever it may be. We've been able to see so much. So it's a blessing to be alive in this time. And I think that we have an obligation and a responsibility to change how we work and how we treat other people within the workplace.
How do you see that changing? I mean, with the rapid advancements of so many new tools and technologies, specifically artificial intelligence, how do you see that changing the way that people in manufacturing, or specifically marketing and manufacturing, how they do work and how they're interacting with others?
I mean, it's here. It's here. Like in my team specifically, we get to stay so mobile, agile, and hostile because we leverage a variety of AI tools, not just Chat GPT, by any means. That's obviously a big bolster. But like there are so many tools out there because the acceleration of AI is affecting so many industries, and industrial is no exception. Industrial marketing is for sure not an exception to that rule, again, because I can confirm that we're using it and it's accelerating the process. It's accelerating the speed at which we're able to deliver things, so therefore we can increase the quantity and the speed without decreasing the quality of the overall product. And there are lots of human intervention things that still exist. And so what we're going to hear, and I think we're already hearing, is like, hey, it's going to take our job. It's going to take our job. No, it's going to optimize it. And so if you are not able to change with that specifically, then the responsibility is on you. It's on you. Like with me as a marketer, I could be like, oh no, AI is going to replace me. It's going to be buying ads. Everything's going to be programmatic. It's going to be, and I could sit here and boo-hoo all day. Or I could be like, I'm going to pick up my sword, but I'm going to learn how to use this new weapon as efficiently as possible. And so now I built a team around me that knows infinitely more than I'll ever have to know about it, but we're still leveraging it. So I don't have to be an expert in specifically everything. And I would say that if you're not paying attention to it, and if you're doing any type of marketing and not leveraging it in some way, shape, or form, at least for copy creation, you're not going to be behind. You already are a step behind, and you've been behind.
I heard somebody say it once recently, and I can't attribute it to them because I can't remember who said it, but AI isn't going to take your job, but the people that are leveraging it and utilizing it to its fullest potential, those people are going to take your job if you're not.
Amen, dude. Amen. And so I don't want to be abrasive by any means. And it just always reminds me just of people just getting really upset about, like robots are going to take my job. They're going to take my job. And I just see opportunity with it. And that's kind of the big thing. It's just my responsibility. And I said this when TikTok was looking in the face of a ban, and I wasn't trying to be rude to anybody whatsoever, but it's just the comparison I had is if marketing becomes illegal tomorrow, who do I blame for getting a marketing degree?
That's interesting. So what's next? What do you see as the landscape of industrial marketing looking like for the next? I don't even know if we can look out further than 2 to 4 years at this point because things are changing so rapidly. But what do you see as the near-term future for industrial marketing?
I mean, part of me feels, I respect larger marketing teams as it is, but I think in the industrial space, people are learning very quickly just with what COVID had taught us and these new models. And that's the reason why I started my business as well, is that your need to have multiple individuals at 40-hour-a-week jobs paying top dollar and benefits and all these, it's unnecessary. And it's kind of a sinking cost, for lack of a better term. And then creating the silos between sales and marketing, it's really inconsistent. And so at the end of the day, I'm just seeing lots of trends and push in the direction of not only is there a cost savings to be able to kind of take it outside of house, but if you can find the right partner, because not all entities and firms are created equal, but you can accomplish the same, if not more, without having to add all these additional costs that you're then thinking about cutting the first time things get shaky, because marketing is one of the easiest budgets that everybody leans into just to cut first when things get bad. And so I'm in the house of why sit there and stack up all these costs just to increase headcount when instead of having a team of 5, why don't you just add another Kobe or add a LeBron, if you will, or just, again, for lack of those better references, it's not about the quantity of individuals, more about the quality of work. And if you can do the same quality of work in a fraction of the time for a fraction of the cost, I don't know, me as a business owner, that sounds pretty enticing and intriguing. I'd like to hear more.
Mm-hmm. If there's a newer organization or an organization that is just beginning their marketing journey, other than calling you for advice and hiring you, what's the first step you think they should take on their marketing journey?
Having some type of just general presence online is always a big first step, because everyone doesn't know where to start. But we have to, in order to be found, you have to put up a flag, for lack of a better reference. So having a minimum, just a website of some sort, is pretty easy, low hanging fruit. And these things don't happen overnight by any means, but we have to understand the foundation. And if you want to at one day have some nice, even semi well oiled marketing machine, you have to have a foundation laid. And foundation goes where individuals can just find you. Because it's going to help you be able to get off the ground. And if it's on the fence where there's someone's considering yourself and or another entity, having multiple pages or multiple references where you can prove your validity is going to create a lot of sales opportunities in that dark social platform. So having that's great. You don't need to have an entire social strategy throughout, your entire platform. But a lot of people misunderstand that you can post the same graphic on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and on Facebook and whatever other platform, and you don't have to recreate new things. So I know it's hard to prioritize content, and that's exactly why I built my entire business around making it as simple as possible. But the idea of just having something there so it can be seen and it can be found is going to help accelerate a little bit of the process as you put your salesperson hat on.
What's your philosophy on investment of time, money, and energy into your company's brand versus your own personal brand?
So you're saying as like a leader of the company?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love the thought leadership play, and all the clients, like the primary group of clients that we're working the most intimately and deeply with, we are doing a thought leadership play across the board. Now, human beings are not all created equal, and we understand that some individuals aren't as good in front of a camera as others. Other individuals are better just if you extract their knowledge and then and then be able to translate that into different forms. But I love the play because I don't think I know, and I'm very confident based off a variety of pieces of data and research that I've done, and you may disagree, and if you do, love to hear it, but that human beings are way more likely to mentally attach and subscribe to another human being as opposed to an entity or brand. And I believe that also that having a human being or multiple subject matter experts attached to that brand only amplifies the message. And I view those as almost brand batteries, is what I've called them in the past. And they literally can power and empower your brand to be distributed further from a literal objective standpoint, increase the reach and frequency of your specific content, but also allow it to be more widely and more easily accepted by fellow human beings that are living throughout your sales funnel.
Mm-hmm. I think the same could be said for individuals. Those people, I don't want to say even people looking for a job, because everybody at some point will probably be looking for a job in the near future. Maybe not you and I, who've been lucky enough to lead organizations that we're incredibly proud of, but most people will be looking for a job at some point. And if they take the time now to build their personal brand, to become that known entity, the likelihood of organizations showing interest in them, I'd imagine, is significantly likelier if they're used to seeing their face, hearing their voice, knowing what their philosophy and their value is, versus somebody whose resume ends up on a pile, no matter how qualified they are.
For sure. I can personally attest that, having and investing in my LinkedIn profile has not only provided benefits to brands that I've worked with in the past, but also myself. And so I want to be very upfront about that like there is, like, let's not ignore that there is a general risk that individuals who gain more attention are going to be seen more and prospected potentially by other employers. That's just the way that it is. Like, that's going to happen regardless of if they're putting content out there or not. They're just going to obviously increase the likelihood if they are. So I don't want to be like rainbows and unicorns. That's not a thing. But, imagine if you were to empower these individuals and allow them to, even if it's whatever time it may be, but for your brand to take advantage of that. And also, is that an employee retention problem more than it is anything? Because if you're that worried about talented people in your company leaving, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. And that's so I see both sides of the coin. But being on and experiencing both sides of that coin, where I've provided massive benefit to a brand by just being the human being and drinking that Kool-Aid and flying that flag, totally did it. But as soon as it became less than appealing, or it became treated like a threat, and I said this on the Industrial Marketing Summit stage as well, it completely shifted the energy and it shifted everything. And I was way less incentivized mentally and emotionally to actually push that because of the way that it was being received by the brand. And it has not been the same since, in all reality. And I say that in all humility, but it's just real. It's just reality.
Well, it goes back to the leaders who are empowering and empathizing with their team. And if you're giving your team all of the resources and support and tools and empathy and care that they deserve, then the likelihood of them leaving is significantly lower. I remember I tried to recruit a gentleman years ago, and I told him about the position. And he said, no, it sounds like a good opportunity, but that's not for me. That's very similar to the job I was doing 10 years ago. But let me get you the names and numbers of some people who are on my team who I think could be a good fit for that role. And he said, you mean people you used to work with? And he said, no, there's people here that I know that not everybody is going to work here forever. You did a good job selling the position. It sounds like a good opportunity for the right person. And it's the right opportunity for somebody here. That's great. I want them to grow in their careers. And he gave me the names and numbers, but I'll tell you one thing, Eddie, I was not able to recruit a single person out of that organization because he cared. Because he cared, and they knew that he cared. And to find that other places is pretty rare.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I try not to be super cliche about it. I like to consider myself an optimistic realist, right? I believe you treat people, with kindness, with respect, and all, but also with accountability. Like people forget that, just like Christ, man. People forget that dude flipped tables. He called out the religious leaders. He did lots of things. He definitely stirred some pots, if you will. So there's nothing wrong with that in holding individuals accountable to a specific standard. But if ceteris paribus all else remains equal, man, good things can happen. And when you have good intentions and you genuinely care about the well-being of others. There's a variety of ways to show that.
So what's next for you, and what's next for Speak Friend that we can look forward to?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm going to be at the Industrial Marketing Summit here soon. I've got a couple of speaking engagements throughout the year, so not keeping it too heavy, if you will, but always doing work with MTD CNC, so being able on that global platform is incredible. And then announcing fights in between. I've got a couple cylinders running. I'm the most blessed man I know. I've got more opportunities than what I know what to do with, but I'm just thankful. I'm surrounded by people that I feel I do not deserve to be around, that I'm just so incredibly just thankful for, and they just remind me every day that I was never meant to do this alone, and if I tried, my goodness, I would fail. And as a wise person once told me, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with others.
Yep, I love that old African proverb. Eddie, what's the best way for people to find you if they want to get in touch with you?
Love hanging out with people on LinkedIn. So DM's always open, just Eddie Saunders Jr. But if you like some cool, entertaining, combat sports announcing action, I am Eddie the Announcer on Instagram. So feel free to hit me up. Or if you want to go to speakfriend.io, you can set a meeting with me. It takes 30 seconds or less. I'd love to learn more about what you're doing, because that's how we know and that's how we grow.
Eddie Saunders Jr., this has been a pleasure. Big thank you to Noah Cuff, our producer. This has been Hired the Podcast. Friends, speak later.